Last week we had a client ask about some strategies and tools for managing nerves around performance. They had a very significant performance coming up. They wanted to be able to get a hold of their nerves a little better, and so we suggested to lead with a question. And the question we always invite clients or anyone to consider is, what is it that being nervous gives me? As human beings, we tend not to repeat patterns, healthy or otherwise, unless those behaviors give us something. So there is something in being nervous that is providing this particular person with something that on some level keeps them coming back for more. So that's number one. Number two is really digging into where the nerves are coming from. What are the source of those nerves? What is it that you're afraid might happen? So in this case, underperforming, falling flat on their face, what have you, and the fallout of that. So then the next question is, what is the fallout of that? What would happen if that's the worst thing that could happen? What would you? Can you paint a picture of what that would look like, both in terms of real time and in terms of emotions? How would that make you feel? What would you make that mean? On and on. Third question, could you live with that? If underperforming is the worst thing that is the worst possible outcome of your performance, could you live with that? Could you live with the worst case scenario, right? Invariably, the question is yes, because life goes on, right? We don't lose our house. It's not as catastrophic as our ego likes to pretend that it is, right? And so then, if you could live with the worst case scenario, what is being nervous? How is that supporting your ability to perform? So that's a system of questions that helps you sort of dig into the very source of those nerves. And once you can do that, I mean, it's, as we've said many times before, it's all about awareness, right? It's just trying to become more aware on what are the actual culprits here? What are the things that make me nervous? And by understanding those, can I become less nervous? Why is that important? When I used to coach, that was a conversation I had with all of the athletes that I had the privilege of coaching in the weeks leading up to race season. Reason being, and the funny thing is that other coaches used to think I was crazy, that I would actually entertain the notion that the crew might lose, that I would say to them, what does losing look like? Can you paint that picture? What would it make you feel like, right? What would you make it mean? The very notion that I was allowing the athletes to entertain the possibility that they could lose, according to some coaches, thought that it was a weak strategy. I was setting them up to lose by talking about losing. Not sure how that works, but that was their theory. The reason I did this is because by discussing losing, by bringing it out in the open, by putting it on the table and having a very mature and calm conversation about it, you in a sense demystify the idea of losing, right? You make it so that the athlete can live with the fallout, because invariably they would realize that mom and dad would still let them come home. They'd still get a meal that night. They'd have a bed to go to sleep in. Like, nothing catastrophic was going to happen. It may not be ideal. It might be a drag that you lost, but you could live with it. The point of that was that in performance, we often focus on the tangibles, right? Train hard, get stronger, improve your technique, develop strategies, eat well, sleep well. We deal with all the things we can control. The other thing that we can control and that we tend not to focus on is our emotional safety. By backing into the starting gates of a race and having the athletes not worry about losing, they are in an emotionally safe place, which means they're free, right? They are emotionally free to perform because they're not worried. There's no voice in the back of their head going off about, oh, geez, you better not lose here. They are free to just go out and race the best they possibly can and let the cards fall. When a coach sends their athlete off by saying, have fun out there, you set your athletes up to have their best possible performance. When you send your athletes off with the parting wisdom of, you better not frickin' lose, you have just cued cortisol and adrenaline, two hormones that run rampant in our system. They tighten the muscles. They literally interfere with our capacity to perform. Now, adrenaline and cortisol have a role. They can be a quick shot and actually have a benefit. But when it's a continuous IV drip, you are inhibiting your ability to perform, both physically and emotionally. Stress is the largest deterrent in undermining performance. Now, there's stress that creates urgency and a wanting to perform and rising to the occasion and all those sorts of good things. But when the stress becomes overwhelming, when we start to run a story that I'm not worthy, or if I don't win, this is gonna, that's when anxiety can become debilitating. And that's when you want to have a good hold of it. Okay? So as coaches, it's our role to prepare our athletes for every outcome, right? Winning and losing. And the losing part, I would argue, is probably more important, because you help support emotional freedom. When athletes are emotionally free, or when anyone's experiencing emotional freedom, they are more apt to perform at their highest level and win. Okay? Something certainly to consider. Beautiful day here. Going to finish our run, get it home, and get the day going. Share the love, take care of yourselves, and try and find that emotionally free space if you've got an important performance coming up. Okay? Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.